Okay, now it's time to talk about some spoilers. All the spoilers. So if you have not seen Godzilla Minus One, then why the hell are you here? Get your ass in a movie theater, see it in an IMAX screening or an XD screening or the best screening possible. Go watch it and then come back to this video and then we will discuss spoilers. My spoiler-free review is already up. Go watch that and go see the movie. Now that is your warning. Now before I jump into the spoiler warning, yeah, like like how this movie indicates that it's gonna be the humans versus Godzilla. It's one of those rarity storytellings of Godzilla. I mean, the marketing kind of confirmed that. They're not trying to hide some other kaiju monster like, okay, woohoo, there's going to be a big pay-per-view throwdown. Like, no, this is like more like a horrific event. And, yeah, and then the speculation on, oh, there's two Godzillas. There's two of them. Nope. Bullshit. There's maybe two stages of Godzilla. Like in the first scene, like when we're introduced to our main character, Koichi. I'm sorry if I pronounced these characters' name wrong. I am so sorry if I do. But yeah, we're introduced to him, and when he basically punks out on his mission because he's a pilot, and then now he has these mechanics with him, and then they're in this island saying there's something wrong with his plane or whatever, and then it turns out that he lied about that, and that's where they come across the first stage of Godzilla, and it's horrific, and it's at night, you don't see anything, it's like pitch black, and he comes out of the cut, I'm like, wow, just killing people left and right, picking them up out of his mouth. I thought he was gonna eat them or bite their remains off or bite their heads off or whatever and go, nom. But no, he just grabs them, throws them around, stomps, smacks them around with his tail. Like, it is insane. And then I guess the main mechanic, like one of the survivors in that incident, said, okay, it tells Koichi to get in your plane and shoot him. And then he is consumed with fear. He's already consumed with fear before we see Godzilla, and then Godzilla amplifies that. So seeing Godzilla up close makes him even more afraid. I mean, I can't criticize him for that. I mean, and then he doesn't do anything, and then that's how they're all killed. And then the one mechanic is alive, and he says, like, they're dead because of you. Why didn't you do it? And so he's now going from being consumed with fear, now he's even heavily consumed with guilt. Like from not doing anything, from backing out on his mission, and then not, like being able to try to save, like his comrades from this creature. And the look of Godzilla in that part of the movie almost looks like the 98 Godzilla, where he's just kind of scrawny and he's smaller, and he's not really mutated into the Godzilla that we all know and love. Like, he's not there yet, but he's still a force to be reckoned with. I mean, like, it's, like humans trying to survive him, and then, a lot of people die. And then, like, Koichi, gets back home, and then it's from, like, after WW2, where everything is just, like, devastated. Like, I mean, like, almost everyone has lost their homes, like where he lived at, like his home is kind of like people are making the best of what's left. And there's his neighbor who, she just grills him, like, I mean, like, why didn't you do that? Like, you're a disgrace. Like my children are dead because of you, because you didn't go fulfill your mission. What did you sign up to do? You didn't do anything. And then yeah, like he gets a bit of that left, like here and there, and then he comes across I think her name is Noriko, like, who has a young baby with her, who turns out not to be her baby. Like, she promised the baby's parents, to watch over her, and then that's where we bring these two main characters together, and then they try to help each other out. Like, he lets her and the baby stay with him, and then try to make the best of what they can do. And then some time goes by, you know, like the little baby is now a young girl. She's grown up like a few years, like she's like maybe 4 years old or something like that. And then during that time when they're trying to pick themselves back up, we see like, okay, there's gonna be nuclear testing, and then whoop, Godzilla happened to be there, and then whoop, okay, he's gonna become what we know, like, yeah, like, okay, like you know, like the shitstorm. And then, you know, we see where Koichi, you know, gets a job like collecting mines out of the water, like, you know, like that are from the, I guess from the US or whatever, you know, collect them, destroy them, whatever. Where we meet a scientist named Kinji, and then there's this guy who's a captain, and then there's this guy other younger guy who calls him Kid. And then I like how these characters play off of each other. They seem to hang out with each other a lot. And and Kid reminds me of Steve Rogers before he became Captain America, where he's like, I want to serve for my country. I want to get in there. I want to help. I want to be there. I just want to help. Like, I just want to be able to help. I mean, that's how, like, his eagerness to be in there and help is like similar to Steve Rogers before he became Captain America. And so those are the vibes that I picked up from. I don't know about you guys, but that's the vibes I picked up. So yeah, like Noriko. Oh, okay. So when we see Godzilla for the first time, you know, like in his true form, and then Koichi, you know, like sees dead fish, just like in the first scene, like, you know, like where there's dead fish, like that's sort of like smelling the rain before the rain arrives. Like, and yeah, so that happens again, and then we see Godzilla, and you're like, oh crap, he's in pursuit. And they try to kill him with the mines, you know, like, you know, he has a mine in his mouth, and then they blow it up, and then half of his face is really fucked up, and then it quickly regenerates, and then he gets back up, and he's back in pursuit. And then there's and then there's like, I think a Japanese ship who saves them or whatever. They attempt to attack Godzilla. That fails. Godzilla attacks the ship. And then we see the atomic breath from under the water, and poof, like, oh man. And then I'll get to the atomic breath in a minute. Like, and then we'll fast forward to where Noriko like gets a job, and oh my gosh. And then where Koichi has nightmares about Godzilla, and he doesn't, like, Noriko doesn't know anything. Like, okay, so what is your deal? Like, what was going on? And I assume he knows a lot about what she's gone through, but she doesn't know about, you know, like what he's gone through at this point just yet. And then, man, and then there's a point where he finally opens up to her about what happened and how it's his fault and how he blames himself. And, it's a very emotional scene. It is so intense. I thought I was going to geek out in this movie, but I was so locked into the story to where I was just like, I'm invested. Like, wow. Like, I'm just locked in. Like I wasn't like bored or anything. I was just like almost I couldn't move, and I would barely eat my popcorn because I was just locked in. And when Noriko would embrace Koichi after, you know, he's just pouring his heart out, and then saying like, no, it's okay. Like, they embrace one another. And you know, characters slowly try to tell him that, no, you don't need to die. Like, you have something to live for now. You have a purpose. I mean, you have that young girl to look after now. Like, you're practically her father now. You are a father now. I mean, like, you don't have to live with this survivor's guilt anymore. And he has trouble really processing that. And then there's a point in the movie where the little girl calls him daddy, and he rejects it. And I'm just like, dude, don't do that. I mean, that's probably because I'm a dad myself. So hearing her say that, you know, like, you know, it made me like my heart, you know, like warm up, and then it just cracked open with pain, like when he said, look, you know, I'm not your father. Like, come on, man. And then we get to, okay, let's get to where Godzilla's on land, and he's in Tokyo, And then he's just fucking shit up. And then poor Noriko is on her way to work in the train. And then she sees him. And then the train just stops because like, oh, something's thrown onto the tracks. Another train. And then they're all like, what's going on? And then we see Godzilla head towards the train. And you're like, whoa. And then you hear his iconic theme. It fits the tone. And he's just messing things up everywhere he goes. Like he's a building. He wants to just trumble it down. And he wants to whack his tail and everything. And then we have, and I think there's a cute, like a nice little nod to when, the reporter's like, oh, there's the creature, there's the creature. It reminds me in the first movie where they did that, the very first Godzilla movie back in the 50s. Where it's a little nod to that. And also like when Godzilla picks up the train and poor Noriko is trapped there and she has no choice but to jump into the water, just fall in the water, because don't stay there, you know, waiting for Godzilla to kill you. And just from experiencing that, she was like just consumed with like where she's just traumatized. She's just like out of there, like wow, like the trauma just hit her like a ton of bricks. And then conveniently Koichi finds her, and then they run to safety, and then these tanks come and attack Godzilla, and you know, you think it worked. Did it work? Did it work? We know it didn't work. And then Godzilla is like, my turn. And then we see his spikes light up and they come out like doof, 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 doof. And then it gets to when it gets to the back of his neck where they're all lit up, and then they chunk all back into place, and then he lets out his atomic breath, and it's like one of the most dangerous interpretations of his power. Like where when his blast hits whatever it hits, and it goes off like a nuclear bomb. Like wherever he aims at that location, you know, like a nuclear like mushroom, like a nuclear bomb goes off. Like wow, that's almost as dangerous as Shin Godzilla, where the atomic breath comes out of his mouth and out of his back and out of his tail. Like it's almost like that level threatening. And then when Noriko pushes Koichi and, you know, like out of the way, and then we were led to believe that she's part of the casualties, like part of, like where it seems like everybody died and she was a part of that. And then you hear over the radio that a lot of people died and a lot of people are critically injured who are they're alive, but they are seriously in critical condition. And you see the damage of that atomic breath, where it's just as bad, and it's just like even worse than when we first get into Japan after, you know, the war. Like it is devastating. And then you feel like, and then the poor guy, like, you know, like Koichi, like where he sees everything, there's nothing but a wasteland around him, and it's just him and Godzilla. And then you see Godzilla sort of roar and like loud and proud, and then he screams with agony, and like, oh man. And then we get to a plan where it's okay, how do we kill Godzilla? Like, I mean, what resources do we have? Like, there's no technology that we have now that they could have used. Like, wow. So they came up with a plan to sink him into the water, you know, like where there's decompression, where that could kill him and whatever. There's an attempt of that and stuff. I'm like, okay, that's different. They never tried that before in other movies. Like, okay, that might work. Maybe it won't. And then, and then we cut to the little girl where she is asking where her mom is, and we know that she's gone, and a couple of scenes where she cries. Like, it's almost borderline to Train to Busan, where the young girl in that movie, like where she was crying. Like, no spoilers for that movie, but it's like almost on par with that for me. Almost. But man. And then let's get to where, you know, Koichi finds the mechanic, and then it's like, okay, like I need you to help me get this plan. Like, help me do what I can do this. And he feels like he has to die, like for the people who he left, basically get killed and got killed pretty much. And everyone's saying like, and then I remember when the captain says, no, don't Don't abandon your daughter. Don't abandon that little girl. Don't you dare do it. Like, you have a purpose now to live. And it's a very uplifting story. And then they leave the kid behind where he's like, look, I want to fight. I want to help the fight. And then the captain's like, no, like, you're the future. Like, no, like, we fight so you can live. And I get where the captain's coming from, and I get where the kid's coming from. But, man. And this is the first time where I'm really rooting against Godzilla. Like, it took me over 30 movies to be like, yeah, okay, take down Godzilla. Like, this is a better storytelling with the human aspects when Godzilla's not around. Way better than Shin Godzilla, where it's just political debate. And then we're just in a fancy office in a fancy council room. Like, that's just all we're in if we're not with Godzilla. Like, come on now. And then we get brief moments where we're in, like, just a regular town setting or whatever. But we're mainly locked into these political environments. But we're here with the people, where there's no government involved. And they're just like, man, you're on your own. You're on your own. You all got this. You all got this. And they have to fend for themselves. And, man, and it's really uplifting for those who choose to go in there and do something, and you understand why people are like, no, I'm not doing this. I mean, I've been in war. Like, I don't want to do that. No, I'm like, count me out. You get why they feel like that. And then it gets to when we get to the final mission, to defeat Godzilla, and he's up, and he, like, he takes time to recharge after he uses his atomic breath, and he kind of rests or whatever. And then after he comes up, and then Koichi lures him back into the water, and then they go through the plan, and it looks like it's working, where they sunk him in, like, okay, it looks like it's working. Oh, and then he's being damaged while he's being sunk in, like, it looks like it's working. And then some plans go south where Godzilla gets the upper hand and whatnot, and it's like, oh, okay, we don't have, how do we go on with this plan now? There's not enough here to really pull him up and whatever and whatnot. And then Kid comes in with the people who said we're backing out. They decide to come in, and then Kid is there, and I'm just like, I almost screamed with cheer, like, yes, fuck yes, fuck yes. And then we get to Koichi, where he gets into the mission where he's gonna drop the bomb into Godzilla's mouth, fly it into his mouth, and wow. And then that happens. Right when he's going to use his atomic breath, and then what? And then poof, blows Godzilla's head wide open. And I'm like, okay, that worked. And then he's crumbling into the rubble, and he goes back in the water. And then we're led to believe that Koichi did not survive, but he did. He ejected himself out of the plane, out of the jet or whatever. And that's what he had the mechanic do. Like, to install that. Like, where, this is what you do, survive. And that's what he told Koichi. And then, and then I rewatched that scene again, like, where someone uploaded the scene again. I was like, oh, okay. I was focused on Godzilla at that moment, where I saw him eject himself out, like, right when it got into his mouth. Like, okay, I didn't see that at first, but now I saw it. I was just like, okay, but that he did send his neighbor a note, like, okay, like, I'm gonna do what I should have done before. And I think he's considering the possibility that he may not make it, and that's why he did that. But even though he had every intention to come out of there alive, but if he doesn't, he didn't. And I was led to believe he was gonna willingly leave that little girl behind, because he felt like that's what I owe the people that I led to their deaths. I owe this to them, like, but thankfully that didn't happen. Everyone, like, they rose up as heroes. It was very an inspiring and uplifting, where they thrived when no one else would help them. Like, it was a very, very awesome moment. And then we see that Noriko has survived. She's part of the people who were in critical condition, who were seriously injured. Like, she was lucky to be alive, but she was in critical condition. And then Koichi and the little girl, they go to see her, and then there's this emotional embrace. And then we zoom in on her neck, like, what is going on there? Like, what is going on there? And then we cut to black, and then we see one final shot of Godzilla, of what's left of him. And it's like, uh-oh, he's regenerating. And then it cuts to credits. I'm like, okay. And then that's a nice little nod to GMNK, like, where we see a last shot of that there. Like, there's a bit of that in there, and there's a bit of 98 Godzilla when we see Godzilla in his first form. And then with the design of Godzilla, he looks like how Godzilla looked like in the Heisei era. Like, well, you know, like when, mostly in Godzilla versus Biollante, like, I liked that design, and like, I liked how he looked like that. It was pretty freaking cool. And man, what a movie. What a movie. I feel like people were so invested that where they barely talked over the movie. They were just locked in from the emotion and everything. Like, they weren't even screaming with joy when Godzilla arrived. They were just like, everyone was quiet. That was probably the most quiet that I've ever been in, where it was like completely filled. The theater was completely filled and everyone was quiet. And when it got too quiet to where I stopped eating my popcorn, I was just like, man, the more I think about this movie, the more I love it. The more I fucking love it. Like, man, see it in an IMAX screening or an XD theater. It's such a shame that it's going to be at a limited time because of Beyonce concert that they're going to play in theaters. Nothing against that, but I think you should keep this movie in IMAX in the Dolby in the best theater possible for a bit longer. I mean, not just for a day or two. I mean, like, come on. This is the best way to experience this movie. And I'm glad I got to see it at an early screening. Like, and I feel bad for anyone who's not able to do that. Like, come on. And I think this movie will do well. I mean, it's doing well in Japan, and I hope they keep it in theaters for a while. Like, this is definitely one of, like, probably the best movie where it's focused on where you need to focus on the human characters rather than Godzilla himself. And it's handled so much better than with Ford Brody in the 2014 movie, and way better than Nick Totopoulos in the 98 movie. Like, come on now. Nick Totopoulos in his, where he's so pining over his ex or whatever, and no, I'm still mad at her, blah, 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 blah. I mean, like, this is handled way better, like, the characters in this movie, and with Koichi and his chemistry with Noriko. I'm sorry if I'm getting names wrong, but with the character growth with her, and then becoming a parent, a surrogate father to this young girl, like where he's given a purpose to live, like where that little girl gave him a purpose, and Noriko as well. And then you know, like with Kenji and the doc and Captain and the kid, like they all sort of gave Koichi a purpose, and he doesn't have to live with the survivor's guilt anymore. And I feel like he fully redeemed himself by the end of this movie. He really did. I feel like he did. And he became the man that he should have been from the start. And I was rooting for him rather than Godzilla. I mean, like, that is insane. That is insane. And I still enjoyed seeing Godzilla. But, yeah, I mean, like, I really enjoyed it. And I am on both ends where I can enjoy a character-driven movie where we were supposed to focus on Godzilla being taken down, and on the other end where we're focusing on Godzilla being the only hope against another monster. Like, I'm in the comfort medium, and when you got on that side of the coin, it was handled perfectly. The execution was pretty fucking phenomenal. There's no other way to put it. Fucking phenomenal. Yeah, like, oh man, I gotta see this one more time. Like, I'm glad I got to see it the first time in the best screen possible, but I'm going to see it again. Best believe, best believe. Yeah, let me know your thoughts on Godzilla -1, and what did you think of the movie? Like, it really, the more I let it marinate, the more, the better it gets. The better it gets. I love this fucking movie. I mean, like, yeah, they could have, you know, like, done what they were able to do with the budget of $15 million with the effects of Godzilla and stuff. I feel like overall he looks great. Overall, he does look great, and his atomic breath is man, what a threat. And when his spikes would light up, I would be afraid for the characters. I'm like, oh no, oh no. And like, how are you gonna kill this thing? And then I did sit through the credits where when it gets to by the end of the credits where you hear stomp and stomp and stomp and the final roar, like, yeah, that indicates that he's alive. This could be a one-off, and they can make like a trilogy out of this. I feel like this is just fine as a one-off. I think it is. And a fun and a cool addition that Toho has done. I like this more than Shin Godzilla, and I really did enjoy Shin Godzilla, but this seems more traditional. And they're still doing different things with Godzilla, but it still feels a bit more traditional. And I do love it, and I like how they kept, his origin a mystery. He just comes out of nowhere. He's a legend, and people know of him, but he becomes something much worse after we see him for the first time. Like, dang. Oh, man, I love this movie. I really love this movie. I can't think of what else I gotta say. I hope I didn't miss anything. This movie is just, in terms of where we're supposed to focus on the characters and it's supposed to be a character-driven story, this movie nailed it. Even more so than the first movie, where it gives you some time to laugh and enjoy stuff and just enjoy all the calm stuff and all the positive stuff and making positive, optimistic stuff out of, out of horrific events, like where you're just like, okay, like make the best of what you have left and what you have. Like, this movie did it. This movie delivered that. And in the first movie, it was just focused on the bleak, like horrificness. It just stayed there. But here, it tries to drift away while still being locked in. What a fucking movie. Yeah, what a fucking movie. I love this fucking movie. Okay, let me know what you thought of Godzilla -1. I'll see you guys in my next video. Okay, take care.